Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the workbench for another locomotive build. Today we're going to be doing an Atlas HO scale C40-8 or -840C, whatever way you want to call it. This particular unit is going to be the CSX 7644, and we're going to be starting off here with an Atlas model. I believe these came out like a year or two ago. This has Loc Sound V5 already in it, as well as ditch lights. Not that it's really going to matter because we're going to end up changing quite a bit here, but here you can see we're getting it out of the box. These Atlas models are some of my favorites to build. Very, very fun build. They really just come out good with a little work. And Atlas really gives you a good base to start with. Now, as you can see here, getting these out of these plastic cradle deal, I always like to leave like the sides on and stuff when I'm taking the screws out of the bottom. Just kind of keeps it from falling somewhere and falling off. Now you can see we got some sunshades and the plug things for the bottom. We're not going to use the plug things, but we will use the sunshades. Now our first order of business here is going to be, we're going to need to get this shell off, and to do that we got to pull our couplers and coupler boxes, and naturally these Atlas models come with plastic couplers. I don't know what kind of plastic junk they are, but they're plastic, and we'll be putting those directly in the trash because we won't need them where we're going. But to get the couplers out, you just take your screws out of the coupler boxes and you just kind of push the box out. Just got to be a little careful just to make sure you don't hit the coupler cut bar, the lift bar, whatever you want to call it there in the front. You don't knock that loose in the process, but you can see those wonderful plastic couplers. They're a two-piece there. And there's your coupler box. Don't ask me why I'm screwing around with putting that screw back into the box when I'm just going to put it in a bag anyway. I don't know. And you can see there went our couplers into the trash can there. Now, in order to get the shell off, we also have to remove this brake chain here, as it's attached to the shell. And generally speaking, I find it better to just remove the chain from the truck than it is to remove the chain from the shell. That's just kind of what I do it. You know, you could do it either way, really. Now we got to try and get our shell off here, and sometimes these Atlas shells really like to stay on there a little bit. You can see here I'm really getting into it with this one. It's not one to wiggle off there, but eventually you keep wiggling and keep working at it and resist the urge to really clamp down and break it. But you can see there's our fancy pants ditch lights that Atlas provided. And we're not going to need those where we're going, but we're still going to unplug that carefully. That's, no sense in destroying something. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the brake detail here that I pulled off trying to get my chain off, and I'm going to try and put it back where it belongs so that I don't lose it. At least that's the idea. We're going to see how hard of a project I can make putting these brake cylinders back in if I can here. See, there we go. We're gonna fight with it there. It'll go on there. It's just gonna take a little finagling there. Nothing like playing with the tweezers there, trying to get that thing to go in there. And then you gotta get the little bit in the end there. But real ahead, we're gonna start our tear down here. Now, the first thing you're seeing here, I'm comparing the weights on the front of this here. The weight on the left is one I had left over. I had cut down from another project, and that's what we're going to end up having to do to this weight is cut down that weight in the front, but we're not quite there yet. I just wanted to eyeball that. There's our Loc Sound V5 decoder. As you can see, I'm going to take a piece of tape here and put a piece of tape on it, and I always have a lot of projects going on at the same time. Generally, I'll have 2 or 3 locomotives going at the same time, so I always try to label my decoders. So that way, if I have to go over to the layout and program some stuff, I can keep track of what's what. Now, our first order of teardown here, after our decoder's out, is we're going to start pulling some of this wiring apart here, because all these Atlas models have all the quick connect coupling and stuff for all the wiring, and I don't really like any of that. And also our speaker there, that's we're not going to need that where we're going. See, that's a big thumbs down. That no good. I don't like those weird speakers. I don't think they sound that great. They're not terrible, but you can do better, and we will with the scale sound speaker later on down the line. Now, those wires I just cut there are the wires to the rear truck. As you saw, I kind of cut them a little bit close to the connector, because I want to leave as much as I can for later when we wire direct to our decoder buddy board. So now we're going to start pulling all of our wiring loose up here in the front. As you can see, it's kind of a lot of pulling tape off and pulling all that stuff apart to get your wires loose, and just kind of slowly getting all the wiring loose. And anything I don't have to cut or disconnect, I just leave connected. Like if it's a front light or a rear light and I'm not using it anyway, I just leave it connected to the board and it goes in the parts bin. Same with the wiring there for the ditch lights. Now I do cut the truck wires you see there, as well as the wires for the motor. That's what I'm looking for right there. And there you go, we're going to cut those. And I always leave as much wire as possible, cut it pretty close to the connector, and try to save myself as much wire. I'd rather have more to cut off later when I'm reinstalling stuff than not. The board will just be a part that'll probably sit in my parts bin for 5 years until I get enough of them to throw them up, because people buy those. I don't know why, but either way, see, we got our board off. Now we got to delete on our ditch light wires here, and we're going to find out here how those ditch lights are connected. There you see I'm trying to yank them through there, and the wires are breaking, and well, if they're going to break, I'm just going to yank them out, because that's, you try to pull them out the right way, and if that don't work, then you break them. So now we're going to continue our we're not going to continue the tear down just here. We're going to put our screws back in that we're mounting our board in, because we'll need those to mount our decoder buddy later. And the best place to put them to where you don't lose them, in my opinion, is to just put them right back in the weight. Now, I had originally planned on using that extra weight I had, but unfortunately it didn't fit. It's a little bit different size. It's from an Atlas C40-8, but it must be they must have made a change somewhere in between the runs, because that one wouldn't work, so I ended up leaving it off to the side. But there we're going to pull our rear weight off, and we're also going to pull our front weight off here as well. Want to get both of those off of there. Because as part of my build process here, as you guys are seeing, I pretty much tear everything down almost all the way. There's a little comparison of the weights there. As you can see, that factory weight, we're not going to need that big speaker enclosure area, and I want to trim it down just because of how the top edges are kind of sharp, and I don't want to be in a situation where I could pinch any of my wiring to my LEDs later on, so I always go ahead and cut those down a little bit. Not to mention, it makes a good place to put a keep alive as well. So as you can see here, we're just going to go ahead and strip this weight down some more here. I'm going to pull the little tab things that hold the side pieces in off, and basically get her ready to take out to the garage and use a Dremel on it and cut her down a little bit. But and see, you got to pull those things out. But again, it's not something you have to do, but myself personally, I just like the little bit of extra weight, because that's a bit of a pinch point there in the front of the locomotive, so I always just do that just to make sure I don't have any trouble. Now next here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull our trucks out, because we're pretty much going to tear these down for two reasons. One, because I always weather all my locomotives. I do all that myself. And as part of the weathering process, I like to paint the sides of the wheel, the outsides that you can see. And the easiest time to do that is when you're, already working on the locomotive in the first place. So now you guys can see there's these little clips that'll hold the bottom piece of the truck on. I tried pointing at them there, probably couldn't really tell, but you can see I'm taking the knife and kind of putting it down. I'm twisting it and I'm pulling out on those side frames. And however that truck's designed, it's meant to all clip together. So by doing that little bit by releasing that bottom plate and wiggling on the sides, it'll pop the sides off. So we're also going to, while we're working on this, we'll also do some soldering here and hardwire the power wires from the truck to the pickup, whatever you want to call that there, what in the heck's the word for that? I'm having a brain fart here. The power pickup, we'll just call it that. Whatever, the wire going to the metal piece that touches the wheels. You guys will see that in a minute, but first we got to get all of our trucks and side frames disassembled here, so that way we can get in and we can paint our wheels first. So as you can see, sometimes these can fight you a little bit. Just kind of got to keep playing with them. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to get some brown paint. I believe this is like burnt umber. Look at that paint kind of schlepped down there. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to paint the sides of my wheel. Now, you do have to be kind of careful here. You don't want to get paint all over like the center section. As you guys can kind of see, I'm kind of painting around the outer edge, and I'm leaving that very center area clear of any paint. And that's because that's where your power pickups touch on the sides of the wheels, as well as on the actual axle itself that's sticking out. That's also the reason I leave the wheels in the base part of the truck here. It just makes it easier to paint the sides of the wheels as well. So there you go. Just get it on there. You don't have to be perfect, but just get it on there pretty good. A little fun fact here, you're probably going to get paint on the bottom tread of the wheel. It's just kind of the way it goes. If you don't, great. But I always do it. It doesn't matter how careful I am, it always gets on there. So you just got to make sure you clean your wheels off when you're all done before you start running your locomotive. But there you can see, get our paint on there. Always paint your wheels, guys, especially when you're already doing a build like this. Why wait until you're already done with it to have to fiddle with this when it's all assembled and it's a pain in the rear end? So go ahead and set that paint off the side. Now here you can see there's our little plastic connector deal here that holds our power wire to our power pickup metal plate deal. And as you can see, I take that plastic connector off, and then I hard solder that directly to that metal plate. And the reason I do that is I just don't like clip-on kind of connections. To me, it's always just something that could go bad or could be a problem. I'd always rather have something hardwired if I can. And again, if I'm already going to the trouble of adding LEDs and weathering and doing all this stuff, why not just do it right the first time while I'm already out? And especially considering I already am taking the trucks apart to paint the wheels anyway, I might as well do this while I'm waiting for that paint to dry on the sides of the wheels. It's just, it's just a good way to kill a few minutes and, kind of give you something to do while you're waiting for that paint to dry. So, and then also if you're having trouble with like power pickup and stuff, those metal plates right there, sometimes they can get dirty. You have to clean them up. I've had to do that on a few older Atlas models before, where the like inner edge that contacts the wheel itself will get dirty, and I've had to take a file to them a few times and just clean up that backside. Now to put these back together, as you can see, you put the frames on each side, and then again we just got to pop that bottom like plate deal loose. It's just kind of goofy trying to do it. I don't want to take that bottom plate all the way off, because then the wheels fall out and the gears fall out, and that's a royal pain in the rear end putting back together. So I always try to do like one end at a time on each truck, so that way it won't fall apart and turn into a mess. That's kind of the goal. No mess, if I can help it at least. So go ahead and you can see there's dang brake lines. Those will make me crazy. That's the only one gripe I have with the Atlas trucks, is how those the brake piping looks awesome. I love it, except for the fact that it always wiggles around and falls off and all that. So that's one gripe I do have. Now, as you can see, we're putting our truck back together here, and I always throw a little bit of that LaBelle oil stuff in there while I'm in there, because might as well do it while I got it opened up already. Again, we'll go ahead and we'll feed our wires back through here. Again, get them fed through there and try not to pinch them on anything, because that's the way she goes sometimes. And we'll put our drive shaft and worm gear back in there, and a little Earl on there, and boom, pop the top piece back on. And just like that, our chassis is fairly done. There you could see the weight that I was talking about trimming down earlier. Now you guys get a little better idea what I was talking about when I said, cutting it down a bit. Just cutting that top edge off of there, and then I also kind of clean up the front a little bit as well. And again, that's just a preference thing with me, to give myself a little bit more room for wiring. And it also, too, it gives me a place to put the keep alive in the front so that I could add weight in the back and have a bigger speaker in the back when we're all said and done. So it actually ends up being a pretty good deal here now. You can see we gotta feed our truck wires through our rear weight here. Of course, it's gonna fight me because that's the way it always goes when you're filming something. A little tidbit for those of you out there that think, I wonder what it's like making YouTube videos. Anything that can fight you will fight you. And all right, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get our decoder buddy board installed here. And remember, I was just saying about anything that can fight you can fight you. Well, there's a screw that's stripped out, so now I gotta fight to get that out because that's the way she goes. As you can see, I kind of had to wiggle it there, and now I'm using the tweezers to kind of pull up on it and turn at the same time because that's just, that's just kind of how the luck goes around here sometimes. You can see now the rest of them will all come out perfectly fine, I'm sure. Must have cross-threaded that one screw or something. I don't know. But there's our decoder buddy board. Shout out to who's it? Nick's Trains that makes these. These are really, really nice. I really like these decoder buddies. They're pretty cool. Kind of my go-to for Atlas builds if they already have the V5 decoder in them. I really, really like them because, as you can see, they screw right into the factory Atlas weights, and that's really nice. I kind of like how you can just use those factory screws instead of having to try and tape them in there and do all that stuff. So go ahead and we'll secure that down, and let's see if we could put our cross-threaded screw back in there. And there it goes, never to be taken out again. And there's the little light pad deal there. And we set that off to the side, 'cause now we're going to start messing around with our actual locomotive shell here. Now, for the purposes of this build and what I was trying to do, I decided it was best to just pull the handrails off. Depending on the locomotive and what I'm doing, sometimes I won't. In this instance, I decided to because I need to pull the cab off, and I just figured, you know what, I might as well just take them off and do it right. So to get these off of here, well, we're going to start by getting our cab off here. You can see I'm going to take my chisel blade. I'm going to just kind of get under that front edge, underneath our side here, being very careful because it's very easy to end up like chipping the side of your paint there a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll get one side started, and I'll come over and I'll kind of keep doing the same thing, get the other side started. And as you guys can tell now, it's usually the rest of the body will come off pretty easy, or just the cab will come off, but that isn't how it worked. So I had to go through and pop all the little clips on the side. Again, sometimes these Atlas models, they'll just fall right apart when you start doing all this stuff, and sometimes you'll see what you're seeing here where I'm fighting tooth and nail to get the shell apart from the sill. Well, the body part from the sill, the long hood and all that. So now we need to get our cab off of our body, but it looks like I'm going to play with the front end of this first. I think this is where I kind of figured, you know what, I should really take these side handrails off before I break them all. And for the most part, they came off pretty easy. Sometimes they'll want to get stuck, and you got to kind of be very careful and get a blade in behind them and just try and work them loose. Sometimes they'll work loose, sometimes they'll snap off from the frame. It's just kind of luck of the draw. Worst case, if they break off and they snap off, you just glue them back on later. It's not the end of the world. You're going to have a little bit of each. Some of the older Atlas runs from like the early 2000s, those ones are pretty good about coming apart. Some of these newer runs from them are a little more temperamental. I don't know if they used more glue or what exactly changed, but some of the newer ones seem to really not want to come apart as easy as the older ones. So now here I'm trying to figure out why I couldn't get my cab off, and that's because our light number board housing headlight deal here was holding our cab in place. So now I gotta take that out, as you saw there, and boom, cab's free from our long hood. And I also need to get the rear number board and headlight assembly out as well. I'll go ahead and work that loose there. Sometimes these pop right out, sometimes they stick in there. And I got that one out. We're going to set that off to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our number removal process here. So I've got some Solvaset here. You can see I'm going to take and I'm going to wipe it on there with a Q-tip. And this is the old way I was doing. I used a piece of paper towel, and I would like put some on, I'd put some more on, I'd take another piece of paper on. I'd just basically soak it down in paper towel, and kind of felt like a bit of a knucklehead when I don't remember if I saw somebody else doing it or if I realized that you could use plastic instead of a paper towel and it actually works better. But I think I end up doing that with the other side. Now, when I was looking at this model and comparing it to our prototype photo, I noticed the plow didn't really match very well, as well as the ditch lights were in a little bit of an odd spot compared to the prototype one. So I elected to go ahead and redo that stuff because, let's face it, guys, your front end of your locomotive is what everybody's going to be looking at the most. So why not go ahead and do a little bit of work and really dress this one up and make it look 100 times better with just a little bit of work. So to do all this work, I got to go ahead and I got to pull the front handrails off. I don't really have to, but it's more or less just that I don't want to break things. And also you need to delete on this here extra set of stanchions here on the front handrails. As you can see, those are not prototypically correct according to my photos, so I had to delete on those with the chisel blade as you saw there. That's the main reason you pull the handrails off, now that I'm seeing that and remembering that. I'm also going to go ahead and pull my coupler lift bar off here, because that will definitely get destroyed where we're going here in a few minutes if you don't pop that off. It can be a little bit of a challenge, and it looks like this one's sticking on there a little bit, so I can't remember, did I take this one off or not? That's the fun part about one of these build videos, guys. For y'all don't know, I actually built this locomotive about 4 or 5 months ago, and I'm just now getting the editing done here. So I don't remember if I took it all the way off or not. It looks like I did. Yep, I did. Sometimes those can also get stuck on there. That's why I wasn't quite sure whether I got that off all the way. But, we got it off of there. Now we gotta go ahead and we gotta pull our MU hoses and front air hose off there, if they'll come off, which they should. Again, like everything else, you gotta kind of get a blade under the edge of it and just kind of work it free. Sometimes they'll come right out, sometimes they won't. Gotta pull the air hose off there. If it'll want to, it's probably not going to want to. So we'll get our other MU hoses. We'll pick an easier battle here first and build up our confidence so that we can break this air hose off here when we try to get it off. We'll see. Actually, no, we're gonna leave that guy be. We're gonna go back up here to this little grab iron up here. Go ahead and pop that guy off of there. Put it in our parts bag. We're going to try that air hose again. And it's just going to keep on fighting. There it goes. They'll always come off. It's just a matter of how hard you got to fight to do them. Now here's where it gets fun, because we're about to remove these ditch lights. And just popped them off with the chisel blade. I wasn't sure how those were going to come off, whether they were molded right into the shell. But they are not molded right in. They're just stuck on the front there. So that's always good. They just they're not quite in the right spot, prototypically speaking. Now you can see I'm trying to get the numbers off, and that didn't work out so well. And this is where I had my big brain moment and said, well, why don't I soak it with some plastic on it here? So I just grabbed an old plastic bag I had laying around. See, there we go. Got a little, we'll just let that sit there for a while, and hopefully that should remove all that there. Now we got to remove our CSX logo here on the front. Again, going off of prototype photos, we got to make sure it's right. And I believe this one was, I can't remember whether it was a little bit too low or a little bit too high, but it was in the wrong spot. I remember that much. So we got to take it off of there. Now you can see there's what happens when you use the plastic. It just literally, it keeps all the moisture in there, and then whatever decal's back there will just come right off, like you guys are seeing there. I'm just wiping that off with the Q-tip. So there's that. We no longer have a CSX nose logo. Here's our numbers on the side of that. Just gone. That's your Solvaset and some plastic there. So take it right off, nice and easy. So this is also how you could renumber one of these if you wanted to right here. Solvaset, little plastic, and a Q-tip. Take that number right the heck off of there. So now we're going to go ahead and I have a Details West plow here. I don't recall exactly which one this is. This is one of the, like, I think it's like the modern CSX NS BNSF one or whatever. I don't quite recall. But it's the one that it's a Details West plow that has CSX in the name. And the main reason I'm using it is because I have a bunch of these. As you can see, it doesn't quite match my prototype photo deal again, so we're going after it with the file here, just trying to get it a little bit closer. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be close enough that that I can live with it, and it's going to look considerably better than the factory Atlas one. It is one area I will say Atlas is lacking quite a bit, is in the plow department. Their plows are pretty, I don't know. It's a plow, you can say that about it, but it's not really up to standard. It's not really up to snuff, so to speak. So went ahead and kind of kept playing with this, and we also need to get it to fit around like where a coupler box is going to go in and everything. So that's the other kind of issue with adding plows and stuff like this, is they can interfere with getting the coupler boxes on and off. So there's no real secret to doing this kind of stuff. It's more or less just kind of, going after it with the chisel blade to kind of cut things out a little bit, and then coming in with the file to kind of smoothen things out, and just kind of keep working it and working it and working it until it looks like what I'm looking for. And you can see, again, just keep chiseling away, keep cutting away, keep playing around. Well, finally, we'll get it to a point where I'm happy with it, and that's going to be about it there. It's not perfect, but it matches my prototype photo, and it should be able to go on there without creating an issue trying to get our coupler box in and out. You can see that's what I'm kind of looking at here. So there's that. I want to go ahead and file down just a little bit more. Just kind of keep filing away a little bit. And also, here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some grab irons to this, I believe, as well, to, again, match our prototype photo. So I got my little number 75 drill bit there. I'm just going to go ahead and, in the top of these Details West plows, you'll notice there's like little indents. Those are for you to drill holes for your grab irons on them. There's a lot of different plows have grab irons mounted to the top of them. And as of course, this particular locomotive had that, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that there. Now, the real trick to like doing these, drilling these really small holes, is having a very, very small amount of the drill bit sticking out, and then not putting too much pressure down when you're drilling it. Now, before we put our grab irons on, though, I want to go ahead and I want to get our plow kind of mocked up a little bit more. So, as you guys can see, I used a little bit of that brown paint there. Just kind of dip the little studs on the back of the plow into it, and then I just hold it up to the pilot and eyeball it. Details West does make like a, well, they don't make it. It comes with a little template deal you can cut out and use. To be honest with you guys, I'm just too lazy to like cut out the template and put it on there and do all that. I just, this is just the way I do it. I just hold it up, eyeball it, Usually, to be fair, I kind of drill the holes a little bit on the big sides. There's a little bit of a fudge factor there, just because even if I use the template, it's still probably going to need a little wiggling around and a little fudging to get it perfect here. You guys kind of see I got kind of need to move it over a little bit, so you got to drill that one hole a little bigger, and as long as your plows, as long as you put your plow on there and you glue it down, well, it's not going to be an issue. So you can see there, I kind of got to bring it down a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to work the drill bit through a little bit just to bring it down just a touch. I have noticed that it always seems like whenever I hold the plow up and mock it up like that and make the little paint marks, it does always seem like it tends to go a little bit high. So I always end up having to kind of lower them down a little bit after I drill the holes. So again, it's just, fiddling with it. Don't rush, just kind of keep playing with it till you're happy. Don't don't just, drill the holes, slap it on there, and up, good, because you'll do that and you'll get a little bit farther along. You'll be looking at it and you'll notice it's a little bit off. So it's worth taking the few extra minutes here and just kind of playing with it until you get it right. And you can see, there we go. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm happy with that there. It's looking good. Yeah. Looks like I can get the coupler box in there. Yeah. All right. Also kind of taking a look at the bottom there. Yeah, we're going just a little bit more. It's almost an episode of how much can I screw around trying to put a plow on a locomotive here. And there we go. Looks pretty good. It's pretty good. So now, before I actually install my plow, what I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and I want to put all my little detail stuff back in place. And the reason I want to do that is because it's very difficult to install MU hoses and stuff when your plow's already on there, because you're trying to feed everything through the plow, and that's just a pain in the rear end. So what I'm doing here is I'm just got a little canopy glue, and I'm dipping the ends of my MU hose deals in that, and going ahead and putting them back in place, so that way I can feed them through my plow and glue my plow in place. And they also kind of help hold the plow in place while it's drying too, I've noticed. So, and you can see I'm putting a little canopy glue on the holes for the coupler cut bar. There we go. And go ahead and put that in place there, if I can get it in there. And go ahead and kind of, it's best to just kind of get one, there's like 4 little pieces that those connect with. You get one started, and then you do one, and then you do another one, and you do another one. You're never going to get it all to go in, perfect, easy, without trying. You got to kind of start in one spot and then work your way down. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and put our new CSX hood logo on here. Looks like. And there we go. So you can see I got to kind of fiddle with it a little bit. And I can't remember why I had to change that, to be honest with you guys. I can't remember if it's maybe the original one was too small. I would have to look at the prototype photos again and really think about it. But as you guys can see, there it is on there. And then you got to do the extra fun part of fiddling around with that, trying to get it centered and all that fun stuff. And of course, while we're working here, we're going to go ahead and we're in our True Color YN2 paint here. You can see we're going to go ahead and get that yellow here on our brake wheel. Now you'll notice this paint is a bit not matching, and it's kind of obvious until you weather it, and then once you weather it, you don't really see it as much. And even if it, like something like a brake wheel like this, to me it's not a big deal, because brake wheels were replaced all the time on locomotives, and you'd end up with newer ones and older ones and different colored ones. So it's not a big deal. Now here you can see we have our YN2 blue, and we're painting our grab irons. Again, I'm matching off of prototype photos. So this particular unit had blue grab irons and a yellow brake wheel. So again, when you're doing a build like this, you want to kind of find the era you're working with, and as many prototype photos as you can for that time frame to kind of go off of. So here we have some silver paint here, and we're going to actually paint our headlight housing here, because from Atlas it was blue. We need to make it silver, because that's what it is in my prototype photos. So it's some kind of metal flake, like metal chrome colored paint. I don't remember what it's called right now, but that's what I'm using here. I've had the bottle of this stuff forever, so you can see I just kind of get it all around the number board housing as carefully as I can. That's why I'm using a micro brush that doesn't really have any brush left to do that there. And you can see, there we go. Look at that. Look at that headlight housing. It looks good. Now we need to go ahead and we need to reinstall our front grab iron here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to drill through where our decal's at here. And we'll go ahead and get our grab iron out of our parts bag. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall. I can't see it. It's somewhere there, but there it is. And we'll get a little bit of our canopy glue to glue that back in place. there we go. Got that guy back on there. Now that our nose is all set there. Now, before we glue our plow on, it's a very important note here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put our handrails back on. The reason we're going to do that is once the plow's on there, you can't really get in there to pull those like edge pieces of the handrail off that are going into the pilot. So we need to get our handrails back on first. Otherwise, it's really kind of a pain in the rear end to try and get those handrails back on the front. So again, as you guys kind of saw there, I started with the middle stanchions. Right now I'm working on like the outer edges of the pilot there, and then we'll do like the lower bottom parts of the pilot there last. Like I mentioned with the couple cup bar, it's always best to kind of pick a spot and kind of start and work from there, as opposed to like getting like the two edge sides and then working towards the middle. It never works out too well. So now we got a little campy glue on here, and you guys kind of see I'm just kind of brushing it on there with that very, very junky micro brush there. Now here's the fun part, trying to feed the MU hoses through the plow and stick the plow up there on the front like so. Boom, it's on there. It's the measure twice, cut once. You know, that's what we got going on there. So while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start preparing for some LEDs. And to do that, what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to have to basically make little block-off plates for all my LEDs to mount to. Because what we're going to end up doing here is we're going to have separate number boards and headlights and all that fun stuff. So in order to separate the headlight from the number boards, I need to be able to mount the LEDs in there. So as you guys see, I have a piece of styrene. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it right over where the headlights are at inside of the hood there, like so. And we're also going to do the same thing here in the rear. We're going to glue over where, we're going to glue a piece of styrene right over where the headlight goes here. You can see there's a little that plastic welder. There's our piece of styrene. We're just going to pop that right in there. And that will be what we'll use to mount our number boards later on, or our headlights to later on. Basically what I do there is I drill a hole in that, feed the wire for the LED through it, and boom, that's what basically is my mounting for that. Now here you can see we got some styrene, some 040 thick styrene. And this is what we're going to be using here to make our mount for our keep alive. And as I mentioned earlier, I cut this weight down in the front, and I did that for clearance for wiring. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a piece of sheet styrene. I think a lot of you will like this here. And what I'm doing is I'm cutting it to fit inside of where that speaker spot was. So it sits above the drive shaft, right? And it'll basically sit above that, like so. And I can mount my keep alive as well as some weight in there if I want to later on down the line. The beauty of that, doing that way is it can't fall down because of how that speaker hole is round. And here's another little one for you too. You can fish one of these little 1/4 ounce weights down underneath the drive shaft in the rear and get yourself an extra 1/4 ounce of weight, so you got some more pulling power. It's a little hack I found out there on a more recent build that I could fit those down there. Now here I'm trying to figure out which of my scale sound speakers is going to fit back here. And as you guys can tell, that one's a little bit too thick, so we're going to have to go with a thinner one. And this one here should do the trick, or maybe it won't. I can't quite remember which one I used. But as you can see, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some more weight here in the back. I'm not actually wiring up the speaker right now. I'm just kind of using a mock-up just to kind of get an idea where I'm going to put it at, so that way I know if I can add weight, I can add weight. Because all told, I believe I ended up adding an ounce of weight to this locomotive total by the time it was all said and done. Because you've got, right there, you got 3/4 ounce just back there in the back. And I believe I also added more up in the front. Now here we're kind of looking, seeing where our clearance is looking like inside. Everything's looking pretty good. I'm feeling good about that. That'll work good. Now I got some more of my YN2 blue paint here. I got to paint that grab iron up there in the front because, of course, like everything else up here in this nose area, it's had the wrong color. I don't know how all the colors got inverted on this locomotive, but that seemed to be the trick. And there you can see we got some black paint. Look at that paint just kind of fall down there like that. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a rough coat of paint here on our plow. This is just craft acrylic paint. It's black craft acrylic. It's nothing fancy. It's Anita's, I believe, is the brand. And it's basically the same bottle I've been using for 6 or 7 years now. Now, the goal here is basically just to get paint all over the plow. I'm not concerned about if it's, a little thin or a little thick. I just want to get a good coat of paint on it to cover up as much of that metal as I possibly can. And what I normally do is I start off kind of trying to get like the edges and the inside parts before I start doing the actual like face of the plow. Just because like those inner edges and stuff can be a real pain in the rear end, and I'd like to get that before the brush gets all gummed up with that paint. So again, it doesn't have to be like a perfect, no bleeding through of the white metal or anything coat of paint, because we're gonna end up weathering it anyway, and the plow's gonna get beat up with the airbrush anyhow. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a base coat. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start preparing some of our LEDs to be or some of our lighting stuff to be reinstalled. There you can see I'm scraping off the old numbers off the number boards because we're not going to need those where we're going. We're going to be putting our own number board decals on. So now for these Atlas units, here's kind of the trick to this here is we're taking, and we need the number board little plastic piece there. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting it off of this whole headlight piece deal. You can see I take the pliers, I cut it. Be very careful and make sure you cover that up when you do it, because otherwise it'll go flying into infinity. But we just need those two little pieces that actually go in the number board part. We're going to be mounting LEDs directly to those here shortly. Now for our rear number boards, it's going to be kind of the same process in a sense. We're going to go ahead and we're going to cut out the headlight part from the middle there. We're going to delete on that because we don't need it. And that'll end up with just being one rather large rear number board piece here. Now, kind of the tricky part here is trying to get that, cut that center piece off, but keep it all in one piece without it breaking. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is with these number board pieces that we just broke apart there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a drill bit and we're going to drill into those number board pieces. That way our LED has a place to go sit down into and mount to. So you can see I'm just drilling down into that. That way I can glue my LED actually down inside to it, and I don't have to worry about it coming off of there. So here for the headlet, for like the front end number board pieces, the two small ones, just make sure you drill into the back side of them, and you'll be all golden there. Go ahead and drill into that. Get those all ready. And we'll go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our LED itself here, and we'll end up using, again, my favorite canopy glue, because I kind of use that for everything anymore. We're going to take the canopy glue and we're going to go ahead and we're just going to dip our LED in it, and then we're going to place our LED into the actual number board piece there, as you guys just saw. Nothing too crazy there. But that's kind of the best way I've found to get the LEDs to kind of stay connected and not come loose or come off or anything, is just to drill that little hole like that and kind of give them a place to sit into. And then too, you don't have to worry about knocking the wires off of them because it's kind of encased and hidden over there. So that works out very well. Now we also have some step lights here. These are from Nick's Trains as well. As you can see, right now I'm finding out that my wires for my LEDs won't fit through my step lights. It's a bit of a frustrating deal here. I was kind of annoyed because these obviously are already pre-drilled. So I thought, okay, cool. It should be large enough to be able to fit a LED through, or the wires for an LED through, and it didn't quite work out that way. And then you can see me trying to drill one out right in the thing. That didn't work out. And finally I had to start drilling them out by holding them and trying to drill through them, and Well, that went all right. Kinda, sorta, not really. Um, these really kind of fought me. I don't know. I mean, the wires are pretty small in the first place. They're not that big of wires, but trying to drill through that little number or that little step light housing was kind of a pain in the rear end. But we gotta do this. Is the first time I ever did them this way. Up until I did this locomotive, I always just glued them to the bottom of the step. I didn't really mess around very much with drilling holes like that or anything. So there you can see we're slowly getting all those mounted up there. So let's go mount all those to our locomotive here. Alright, so there you can see I already put some LEDs in for my headlights there. I don't know where the clip of video went for that. I think I lost that. That kind of way she goes. But either way, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our number board lights in here. As you can see, you just got to kind of fiddle around with it and get it to pop into that number board spot there in the front of the cab. Of course, it's going to be a pain, because I never just want to pop in there, but there it goes and fit in there. And I use a little bit of plastic welder along the edges just to hold it in place, not too much because I don't want to get that on the wires, but just a little bit just to hold that little number board plastic piece in place in there, so that it doesn't slip and come back through the shell. Alright, so once we get that piece glued in there a little bit, now what we're going to do is, you see I kind of take all the wires together there, and I put a little piece of tape over the top to kind of hold our wires down there, just to keep them from falling around everywhere, keep them in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wires and I'm just going to kind of twist the ends together, and I'm going to use this blue tape here, and I'm going to label what those wires are for. In this case, we're putting down NB for number board, and the reason I do that is just to keep some of these wires straight, and to keep it where I know what's what when I go to actually do the wiring. Now, at this point, as you guys can see, we went ahead and we're drilling our holes through here for our walkway lights. There you can see we already have our plastic glued in on the back side of the shell. And I got to drill those out. I'm also drilling my holes through here that I'll feed the wires through for the LEDs, because I hadn't done that yet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our number board piece in here for the rear. And as you can tell, I got that top radiator piece pulled off just because it makes it easier to get this number board assembly to sit in there without that there. And this can take a little fiddling to get in there, but as you can see, we're going to put a little plastic welder in there, and that'll hold our number board plastic in place. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do next is go ahead and run my rear light LEDs through. Go ahead and feed those through our headlight holes there. And you can see you get them started, and then use the tweezers to pull them the rest of the way through. And again, we'll do that with our other rear light here as well. And of course, you know, these little wires are just such a pain sometimes. You get the little ends that don't want to go through, or one wire will go through but the other won't. I always end up fighting it, but as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape down the wires there, and I'm going to tape them down to about halfway through the shell, because that's kind of where they're going to end up going to the board anyway, so I tape them through about halfway. And again, we're going to go ahead and mark these. These are our rear lights, so we'll put down RL. And then, of course, our single wire coming off of our number boards here, I'll go ahead and tape that down next. And mark that down as number board, so that way I know what that is. And basically the approach I go with as far as putting the LEDs in the shells is it's kind of like a top-down approach. You start off with your headlight, your number boards, and then you do like your walkway lights, your step lights, and ditch lights. You just kind of do it in the order of from the top down, so to speak. So now you can see we're doing our end walkway light here, and got that fed through there. Right now I'm trying to figure out how I want to tape that in. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to tape it right there in the center, just work the wires around our rear number board and just try to put them so that they'll be secure and out of the way, but there isn't any way that they can get pinched either. That's kind of the big thing with doing your LED installs, is just making sure you route your wires so that they won't get pinched anywhere. And here you can see we're doing our side walkway light. Again, we're feeding it through. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and just basically fold it over flat and tape the wires and run them down to the top of the shell there, in with where the rest of our wiring will go. So what I'll go ahead and do here is I'm going to take our rear walkway light and our side walkway light, and we're going to twist those wires together, and we'll also tape them off and label them for later on use. You can see those are WW for walkway. So now we'll go ahead and we'll take our cab and attach it to the rear long hood section. And as you can tell, we'll go ahead and we'll start taping down all of our wires from the cab in with our wires from the rest of the long hood section. Again, kind of trying to work all of our wires towards a center spot where they'll be essentially going to the decoder buddy. Just get them close to that center section. And it's time to go ahead and put our sill back in place here. So now I got to feed all those wires through the sill and reattach our cab and hood assembly to the sill there. Just kind of press those all together. Most of those clips will just pop back into place, and of course there's always got to be one that's gonna want to fight with you, because that's just, you know, kind of the way these projects go. And of course right now the cats want to play, so I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the cats are playing in the background while I'm recording this voiceover. But there we're running our front walkway light up through there and tape that down. I guess now the cats aren't playing, so that's good. Label it, of course. Now for our ditch lights here, I gotta go ahead and drill my holes here. Make sure I have a place to run my wires through. Got those in place there. So now we'll go ahead and we'll take our LEDs and we're gonna feed them through our Details West ditch light housings. You can see. There we go. These are the pilot end ditch light mounts. These are the same ones I use for a lot of Conrail units from Details West. There's the same ones for these GE units like this. So what I do is I go ahead and I feed my wire through most of the way and leave it sticking out about, 2-3 inches. Get the glue on where the ditch light housing will be glued in at, and put it in place there. And see, go ahead and feed it through, get most of the way through. In this case, I went a little farther with it, and we'll go ahead and get our glue in. Just go ahead and get that popped into place there. And it's going to fight with me because, that's the way she goes. And there we go. Sometimes you got to fiddle with those a little bit to get them to sit where you want them to. Sometimes they won't want to, but I always let the glue dry. Make sure it's fully dry before I start running any of these wires, just so that way the ditch light housings don't move around or anything. And as you can see, we're kind of taking our wires and we're kind of moving them towards the center area, and we're taping them down. The one place that could be a bit of a pain in the rear end on these Atlas units is like going through the cab, because I always want to try and keep that wiring as invisible as I can. But in this case, it's kind of going right up in the center of the cab. There isn't really anything I can do about it. So I'm just going to try and keep it neat and orderly so that it's not super, super obvious if you look in the cab windows, but it is just kind of there. That's just kind of the way it is. And again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our wires, we're going to twist them together, we'll put some tape on them, and these ones will be labeled DL for ditch lights. And again, as you can see, we're really starting to get a big pile of wires going. That is exactly why I label all these. And I do it this way because trying to do like 2 wires and then attach them to a board or something and then add 2 more, you're just asking for trouble. So I always find it's best to just go ahead and get all of the LEDs installed in the shell and then begin my wiring. Now, here we're going to go ahead and start doing these step weights. On these GE units, they tended to be on the very bottom step, like right above it. So in order to do that, in the past, what I've always done is just glued the actual ditch light to like the underside of the step above, where it's supposed to be mounted, so that way it's essentially in the right spot. The problem I found is it's just almost impossible to get them to sit in that spot and not move long enough to dry. As you can see here, I'm trying to get the wires to like sit there, and I just can't seem to get it right. So what I ended up doing is actually drilling a hole right through the step and running the wires through and just painting them black. And you'd think, oh man, that probably doesn't look that good, but it's really actually, if you paint the wires after they're glued in place, it actually does look good. You don't really see it. So that was kind of my best way I could come up with to where I'm not ripping my hair out putting these step weights in, because I'm gonna tell you guys right now, like, if I didn't start doing it that way before the end of this project, I would probably never do step weights again, because it is like infuriating trying to get these wires to sit right so that the light doesn't fall over or end up crooked or something and all goofy looking. So I'm glad I kind of figured that out here. I'm not sure if I end up showing that here. We'll see in a second. I didn't show that. So yeah, I just ended up drilling a hole through the step and running the wires through the step and out the back. You don't really see it, but again, here we are routing all of our step light wires down inside the shell. Again, it's just kind of hard to get them to go where you want them to, but I just want to make sure I don't have them anywhere where they could get pinched and end up causing a problem and not working. So again, the rat's nest of wires, but that's why we're labeling everything and we're trying to sort everything out here. And even with these step weights, we'll go ahead, even though they're the last thing we have to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tape them off and label them, just so that way there's no chance I can get these mixed up anywhere. So there we go, get those locked off and labeled. So we have the rear step weights are on, and the front step weights, here we go again. We're going to go ahead and just kind of work those towards the center of the shell and run them up underneath the hood there. And we'll go ahead and we'll use some more of our fancy yellow tape. I use a lot of that yellow tape on these. Sure, I could probably put all the wires in there and just tape them all down at once, but it's a lot of wires to try and keep track of at once, to tape down at once like that. So I just always do them as I go. It just makes it a little bit more manageable to do. And there we have more step weights, which are labeled ST for step. Now here we are back again, once again playing with our favorite weights here. And when I went ahead and did my mock-up here, I figured out that I could put 2 of these 1/4 ounce weights up here in the front underneath our Keep Alive. So there you see me mounting those. And here is our decoder back from being programmed over at the layout where my programming computer is. And of course I have my little ESU book here because I still don't remember how these specific Keep Alives get wired in. So we're going to go ahead and first thing we're going to do, we're going to cut our wires here for our front trucks, and we're going to go ahead and get those ready to go here. So as you can see, got my soldering iron. I'm heating up the end of the wire there, the insulation. And what I'm doing is I'm basically burning that insulation, and I'm just ripping the burnt insulation off the end of the wire with my fingertip. Now, that one didn't work out so well, so we're going to go ahead and cut that end off and try again. And there we go. Get a little bit on there, and then just pull that insulation off. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll throw a little solder on our wire. And we'll go ahead and throw a little solder on our decoder buddy there, like so. Throw a little bit more solder on our wire there, just make sure it's good and coated. So that way, when we go to solder it right to our decoder buddy, it'll go right on without an issue. And again, we're going to do the same process with our other wire here. A little solder. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put that right on there to our board like so, right there. Now you'll notice there, those wires here for the front truck, I kind of left them up a little bit and that's so that way they go up and over the keep alive. That was kind of the reason those have so much space to them. And that will also kind of help keep the keep alive in place, because those wires will kind of help hold it down. Now, before we get to our keep alive, though, we're going to go ahead and hook up our motor wires. And you guys will have to comment down below, any of you that do this kind of locomotive work. I swear on my life, it doesn't matter what I do, I always end up hooking up the motor wires backwards. I don't know why. It just seems like anytime I think they should be one way, it's always the opposite, and then I always end up just changing the programming in the load programmer to fix it. But it's one of those things that always drives me nutty. I always get that backwards. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking my keep alive, kind of eyeballing how long the wires need to be from it to the decoder. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start wiring these on. Now these little wires going onto the board, these drive me nuts, because they're very hard to strip the end of it, and I don't want to strip too much because of how small those little pads are on the actual decoder itself. So this is probably one of the harder parts of the whole thing, is getting those set up right, getting the ends just stripped just right and all that. But again, much like our motor wires and our truck wires, I'm just heating up the end of the wire with the soldering iron to kind of burn that insulation, and then just kind of picking it off with my finger. Of course, you gotta be kind of careful. I'll put that little disclaimer in here to be very careful doing this stuff, because you can burn your finger pretty easily. Kind of just, part of doing this stuff. You kind of learn. You kind of get used to, you'll get things a little hot and you'll feel the burn a little bit, but just don't hold the heat. You don't want to hold the heat. So here we are. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start hooking up our wires here. As I almost got into here a minute ago with this, what I was going to say is I really wish, like, in the future with these decoders, like ESU would kind of like maybe come up with a little better layout on them, so that we can attach wires to a little bit easier. Would be really cool, or at least for like the keep alive wires and stuff, seeing as that's such a popular thing to do, is to add a keep alive. It would be really cool to do that. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a way to wire the keep alive right to the decoder buddy. But for any of you that don't know, I'm really not an expert when it comes to a lot of that stuff, and I just do things the way I know they'll work. And so I just wire straight to the decoder because I know that's going to work. So that's what I go with. But either way, we have to go ahead here and do our rear truck wires here. And as you can see, I got to kind of fiddle with them to get them far enough along. And of course, I didn't like where I'm coming up and through there, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull them on up to this next hole they can go through there. And we'll just keep on fiddle with them here. It's always fun trying to fiddle wires through a chassis like that, because they always want to go everywhere but where you're trying to send them to. And much like the front, I'm going to kind of get them close, and I'm going to cut them a touch long, not too long, because I don't want too much excess wire. So we're going to go ahead and get our insulation off and prepare to connect these to our decoder buddy. Let's see. Now here on the rear, I'm actually putting solder on for the 2 speaker connections as well while I'm doing this. Just because whenever I'm soldering like solder pads like that, I just solder all the ones I'm going to use at once, rather than trying to like just do the one I'm doing and then come back and do it later when there's other wires connected. It's kind of a pain to try and do that later on. So I just always do them all right there while I'm at it. And you can see there's our wires are nice and neat coming from our rear truck. And it looks like I'm going to tighten that down just a touch. And there's our fancy pants speaker from Scale Sound Systems. Shout out to them. I don't remember exactly what size speaker this is. I'm kind of having a little bit of a brain fart on that. See, I'm going to use a little tape to secure it down there. But for a lot of my builds, I just tend to kind of go with a stock size. This is the same kind of size speaker I would be using if I was still using the ESU Cube speakers and building my own housings out of their parts. But I just started using these Scale Sound ones because it's about the same price, maybe a hair cheaper. and I can get the size I need anyway. For any of you out there that need speakers for install, I highly recommend them. They make great sounding speakers, and all of their stuff that's, you know, like custom fit, custom designed to fit in specific locomotives and stuff fits great. The only reason I'm not using their custom, the stuff that's specifically for this Atlas model, is because of how much the modifications I'm doing to the frame and all that for lighting and everything. So that's the only reason I am. Otherwise, I would. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start connecting our wires to our decoder buddy here. As you guys can tell, what I do is I take that little board from the decoder buddy and I tape it down. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off here and we'll do like our front light. We'll do the blue wires go to the actual like function itself, so like the front light or the rear light or the ditch light. And the red wires are going to go to the U plus is what it's labeled as. I believe that's the positive and the other ones are the negative. Again, don't roast me in the comments too hard because I'm not that technical with stuff, but the blue wires go to the function stuff and the red wires go to the common, so to speak. So basically here it's just a matter of going through and individually hooking everything up. So doing your front light, for your front light, your rear light, your ditch lights will be individually done. Your number boards you do together. If this locomotive had marker lights, you do those all together. Your step lights and walkway lights, you could do those together or separate. I did them together, I believe. I don't recall doing them separately, but I'd have to check here when we actually get this a little bit farther along. But basically, you start off with that big mountain of wires, and you just kind of got to start picking through it a little bit at a time here. And as long as you kind of attack it a little bit at a time, it's really not that complicated, and it's really not as much as what it's going to seem like it is when you first look at it and go like, holy cow, there's, 40 wires I got to connect here. Well, it's not really that bad. It's just, a little bit at a time. So what I do is I take these and cut them down so that they're not super, super long. I try to leave them a little bit long so I have a little fudge factor for taking the shell on and off. And as you guys can see, I take and just like everything else we've been doing, I heat up the end of the wires with the soldering iron to burn the insulation and get the insulation off. On these particular wires you guys are seeing me use here, with these particular LEDs I'm using, the insulation just pretty much burns right off of them. I don't really have to pick or prod at them too much. I just make sure I really, really, really get them good with the iron and then come in with some solder, and it generally works pretty well because these wires are they're like a little bit bigger than a human hair, roughly. I mean, they're pretty fine wires. So since I haven't mentioned it yet, these particular LEDs I'm using are nothing fancy. They're nothing special. I get them on Amazon. I want to say like 50 cents or $1 a piece. But I buy them in like bulk packs, so like 20 or 25 on Amazon. And there's 6, I can't remember, they're 402 or 603. They're the smaller ones. So I think that's 402 if I'm not mistaken. But they're warm white LEDs. That's the color. Now you guys will see when we actually run this on the layout, they're not really what I would call a warm white. They're kind of a little bit more of a bluish hue to them, which I'm not 100% happy with. But I really, really like working with these wires that are on these LEDs. They're very easy to work with, and I don't have much trouble with them. So it's kind of a trade-off between that and the fact that they're very cheap. So like if I'm working on something and one of those LEDs, one of the leads comes off or something breaks off, I don't really care. It's 50 cents or it's, whatever. It's not a big deal. Whereas if you bought, some actual LEDs from the manufacturer, those can get kind of pricey kind of quick, and I don't want to be throwing away money with stuff like that. So that's why I kind of go with these. There used to be somebody I used to order them from. I can't remember the name of the shop, but their website just kind of, they quit, their website just disappeared, and that's how I ended up finding the ones on Amazon. Again, look up warm white LEDs on Amazon, the 402 warm white SMD LEDs, and I guarantee you'll probably see ones with blue and red wires coming off them, exactly like what you're seeing me use in this video. And those are what I use. They're literally, I don't have a specific seller or anything. I just get whatever ones I can find. Now, as you guys can tell, we're already putting our frame back in our shell here, being very careful not to pinch any of our wires while we're doing that. And now it's time for the fun part of reassembly and weathering. So as you can see, we got our couplers here. We're going to go with some KD 158s, the whisker mount couplers. And as you guys can tell, I don't use coupler springs. I don't need those where I'm going. So we'll go ahead and we'll get our coupler mounted back up in there, put our screw back in, and bada boom, it's in place. The one thing you got to kind of watch with these Atlas units is when you're putting the coupler box into the body, that coupler lift bar, like the little part that goes above the coupler box, sometimes can get pinched on the top of the coupler box. You just got to watch that. You guys will see me kind of fiddle with that here. That's kind of what I'm doing. That's why I stop here. See me take the knife. I got to push that lift bar down a little bit to get the coupler all the way in without crushing it. So, and we'll go ahead and we'll screw that coupler down in there. And there we have that. We still got to hook our brake chain back up, which that's going to be a show and a half in and of itself, because any of you that have tried to reconnect one of these brake chains will know that this can be a bit of a pain in the rear end. But today we're gonna go after it here, because you have to get that little end chain through the little hook on the brake cylinder, and it's just I love the brake chain detail on here. I think it's awesome that it's a real brake chain, but this, oh, I hate doing those. They always want to fight with you. This time it didn't go too bad though, so go ahead and we'll get our handrails back installed here. And obviously, as y'all can tell, we just kind of pop those back in place. Nothing too special, nothing too fancy there. Just literally popping them in. Hold them up there and push them back in. And do our front ones. Sometimes the little ones that go down towards the bottom on this like steps and stuff can be a bit of a pain, but for the most part, these ones went back together pretty well and didn't fight me too much, so it's always a positive. And now we gotta go through and do a little touch-up paint work here. We're gonna go ahead and paint our ditch lights here. I always just paint the ditch lights directly on the locomotive. And the reason I do that specifically is anytime I tried to paint them in the past before I installed them, I'd always end up chipping like half the paint off trying to put them in place or hold them in place with a knife, or, you know, use the tweezers to move them around or something. So I just kind of got in the habit after a while of just waiting until they were already on there and then painting them. You just got to be careful that you don't paint your LED itself on the inside. So I also went ahead and painted my step lights, the step where I ran the wires through for the step lights, and just paint that as well. And we got to throw a little of our brown burnt umber turd color paint there on our couplers. So we're going to be heading towards the weathering channel here pretty soon. Do a little weathering. But we also have to put our sunshades on. And of course, like everything else, I don't want to pop into place, but we're going to use a little plastic welder to try and kind of help ourselves along here a little bit. Now I know there's like, you know, really nice metal etched sunshades and stuff out there, and I know they're out there, and as you guys can tell, I'm just using the factory Atlas ones because, they look good enough to me. I ain't complaining about them. I think they look pretty sharp. I'm not gonna go that far on this model. I'm not adding a whole bunch of underframe detail or anything. I'm just trying to make this stock model look a little bit better with a little bit of work. So go ahead and get our sunshades glued on there if they ever want to quit fighting with me here. And a little plastic welder on there. Just don't breathe and don't touch it, and it won't fall down. Yep, see, that's what I did. I touched it and it fell off. And now we got to go ahead and put our new numbers on here. We're starting off with the 44, and we're going to add a 76 to that here shortly. But first I got to get that 44 spaced out right. There's our 76. And of course I had a little too much of the microsol stuff on there, so I'm going to get a little bit of that off. But now for the never-ending fun of trying to get the numbers spaced out correctly. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way, but it just seems like you'll get one number right, and there'll be like another, you'll get almost all right, and then you have like one that's like, I'll adjust a little bit, and then it just screws up everything. And that's what always seems to happen. And I swear on my life, no matter what you do, as soon as you clear coat it and weather it, you put it on the way out and you look at it, you'll realize one number's a little bit crooked or a little bit too low or something. I don't know why. That always seems to work out that way, but that tends to be the rhyme or reason. So any of you at home doing renumberings and stuff, if you're ever ripping your hair out going, how in the heck did this number end up crooked? You're not alone. We all seem to fight that battle with these. But we'll go ahead and do our other side here. Now for this side, I have the 4s are separate. I didn't have consecutive 4s to use, which I always like to try and use, if I can, use two numbers that are already together. With locomotive cab numbers can be a bit tricky because the spacing can be wrong sometimes, so you gotta really watch that. With this one, it matched up well enough that I just went with it, and I'm happy with it. I think it came out nice, the numbers at least. Now again, you know, it's just a little fiddling with it and fiddling, trying to get them just right. It's the guy, the 4's got to go up a little bit. And I think at that point, I just kind of said that's good enough. Now you can see here I am back doing this again. Oh, see, there you go. Just try to make a little adjustment and end up moving it everywhere. That's just, you know, that's decaling. I don't know why decaling always has to be such a pain like that, but just kind of seems to be the way decaling always goes. And now we're over here at the paint booth. First start off here, I'm throwing a little coat of fade down here. I think I used like reefer white, I want to say. Just a really light fade coat, not too much. Again, just kind of going off a prototype photo. This unit in like the late 90s wasn't going to be too faded, but it did have a little bit of fading to it. GEs really tended to do that. And now we're throwing a little rail brown on our trucks and our fuel tank area, just to kind of give it a little spice. I'm not going to blast it with rail brown or anything, but I just want to get a little bit down there on the bottom, just to give me kind of a base to work off of for the weathering. Again, this unit's not going to be super dirty, but it's going to have a good bit of soot up on the top, and that's what we're doing right here. We're going to hit the top part of the radiator and the long hood with a good bit of black here. I think this is like flat black is what I'm using. And I'm just kind of really hitting it hard because everybody knows how GEs were, and then these Dash 8s, they just billowed smoke. You know, and sometimes they even shot flames out the stack, so that was always pretty cool too. But they always had a very dirty top side just because of that, especially if you had more than one a consist, they would really get dirty. So we're in a pretty hefty amount here of our black up there along the top. Gotta make sure you get that back a little bit too. Oh, there we go. There's our black all up on there. And now let's head over here to the workbench again. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a panel line wash. This is from MIG. Now, for this wash, like you guys are going to see, it's pretty thick stuff. And this is with it thinned down by half. Whenever I get a bottle of this stuff, I pretty much split it in half and mix it thinner. And even still, it can still be way too thick. So what I'll do is I'll brush a little bit on, and then I'll take some thinner and kind of mix it in. And I just kind of go back and forth until I get it about how I like, because it can be really easy to get way too heavy with this stuff, but at the same time, you could also end up way too light. And with like a CSX unit like this, I really want those panel lines to really have the dirt in there. Now, here we have some flat black from Badger. This is the Model Flex paint. This is an acrylic paint. What we're going to do here is we're going to paint all of our grills black here. Just because these GEs always, again, they seem to have like really, really dirty grills. Now, you can already tell from the panel line wash, it has a decent amount of black in there. But when you paint those grills actually flat black with just solid black paint like this, it really, really kind of sets them off. And for any of you wondering, I have not found a trick to do these any better than just literally doing them carefully with a hand brush. Just very, very carefully. Any of you at home that are going to do this for the first time, I pretty much can guarantee you're going to get paint outside the grills. It always does. I'm sure if I would have zoomed this in a little closer, you'd probably see where I had paint everywhere too. But the more times you do it, the better you get. You really want to kind of use a fine brush for it. That really, really, really helps. As well as using a good acrylic paint makes it pretty easy too. But the biggest thing I say is just get a good fine brush. Really take your time with this. And use a paint that's thinned down and it has like a lightness to it, but still thick enough that it's not going to go everywhere if you get outside of where you're working at a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get this top grill area done as well. But you can see how much of a difference just painting those grills makes. Just really brings that contrast out, and that to me, it just brings it alive a little bit more and just gives it that more dirty look. That's the way I remember all these Dash 8s back in the 90s. That's how I remember them, just solid dirt-filled grills and just soot along the top. And, you know, they might be a little bit clean on the sides, but there was always rail grime on the bottom and the trucks and stuff. So that was what I went with mine. You know, for any of you, you could do these a little bit lighter. You could do them heavier. You know, you could kind of go anywhere you want. My weathering for this project was more of a middle of the road. I didn't want to go too far, and I didn't want to also go too light either, because these have been in service for a while at this point. So again, hitting our grill up here, nothing special there, just, you know, a little filling in the grill there, and then boom. Now, unfortunately, you can see we have a Sharpie, like silver Sharpie marker deal. Apparently I got the lens of the GoPro dirty at some point, and or I'm not sure if it was that or if the my LED light I have mounted above me that I used to light up the workbench might have got too close to the camera maybe. But that's why the screen looks kind of funny, and unfortunately I can't fix that in editing, so it kind of is what it is here. But as you can see with this silver Sharpie marker, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of getting in there, and I'm doing those little bits of the brake cylinder silver, and I'm also going in, I'm just doing little random bolts and stuff on the trucks, like silver, so they look like they're replaced. And here you can see I'm kind of going in and doing a few door hinges and door latches, also in this silver, just to give them that appearance that they've been replaced, and, you know, that some things are different than others. This is, again, one of those parts where you could go off prototype photos if you like, or you could just kind of wing it and just do a few here and a few there. Right now I'm doing the little back sides of the step there, like, you know, from having boots rubbed up against them. So it looks like, you know, guys are going in and out of the locomotives, they're wearing right through the paint, as well as doing that on the handrails some, because those same spots that they grab when they're climbing up and down every time, you're going to wear the paint right off of those. So go ahead and do those, and then we'll do a few door hinges over here too while we're at it. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not really, in this instance, I'm not really working off prototype photos, more or less just kind of picking random little spots and doing them. Just trying not to do too many, but trying not to do, like, trying to have a few too. It's essentially just kind of using my eye for better judgment there. Now here we're using an archival ink pen. Of course, the camera doesn't really show it very well, but this is like an archive ink pen. This particular one is like a brush, so as you guys can see, I'm gonna get a little bit down there, and I'm gonna wipe it off with the Q-tip. I come back in and touch it up again, and basically what I'm doing here is I'm making all my little rust streaking and rust stuff. So whatever this kind of ink is, I don't know what it is or how it works, but you get it on with the brush a little bit, and it will smear if you like touch it or move it at all. So that's what I'm doing is I'm getting a little bit down there, and I'm wiping it with the Q-tip, and then I'm coming down and I'm making a little dot back again, because that little streaking spot from when you wipe it looks like a perfect rust streak, and then you just make your rust spot with the actual brush when you're done. Again, we're doing a few hinges, a few door latches. We're going to make them look a little rusty. Do a little paint chips here on the handrails as well. A few up on the front of the plow here. Now you'll see I'll get a little excited here doing the front of the plow, and I won't be happy with it, so I'll wipe it off with the Q-tip. And that's kind of the thing, is just you kind of want to just kind of attack it a little bit here, and then, you know, maybe wipe it off a little bit if you're not happy with it, and just keep kind of working a little bit at a time. You got to kind of build this up a little bit, and kind of do a few little dots up here on the nose, like there's little paint chips and rust coming through on the nose, and again some more on our handrails, because of course there's going to be rust chips on the handrails as well. A little few on the edges of the hood where guys are bumping into it all the time, or hitting their lunchbox or their coffee mug on, climbing in and out. I just kind of keep putting little spots here and there. The other thing is, too, I kind of try to move around a little bit whenever I'm doing weathering. I try to kind of work in one area and do a little bit, and then kind of work in another area. And generally, I find that, like, I'll start on, you know, the engineer's side, and I might work on that for a little bit, and then I kind of will be, I'll feel like, that's good enough, and I'll go over to the conductor side and start working on that. And I kind of bounce back and forth a little bit, so that way I don't end up doing too much in one spot, and it kind of helps me kind of do a little bit here and there, and kind of keep it so it's not overdone or anything. That's kind of the trick to it, because it's very, very easy when you're doing this kind of stuff to way overdo it when it comes to weathering. And I know probably to some people I probably overdo it, and they're probably not wrong, but that is kind of a hard balance to find, is to do enough to do it justice and make it seem real, but not do so much to where it's like, okay, that's a bit much, you know. So I try to kind of bounce around a little bit, and, you know, like you guys saw, I was just working on that sill area. Now I'm going to do the trucks a little bit, and just kind of bounce around and keep adding a little here and a little there to give me an overall weathered approach, you know. That's kind of what I really find with these that works, is just doing a bunch of really small little detail stuff like I'm doing right now. Makes a giant difference when it's all said and done if you do this little stuff, because it gives people things to look at, to where they're gonna just keep finding little cool things they see, and that's what will really make a cool model, is when you have little things like that that they can just keep looking at and keep picking up. So now we have our black paint back out again, and we're gonna go ahead, and we did a little fuel spillage there from the fuel fill. We're also gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw a little black on our truck bearings here. Kind of give those a little life to them. And again, there's our fuel spill and our truck bearing caps with the, you know, grease coming out of them. And of course, I wasn't totally happy with how those looked with all that black on the bearings, so I kind of wipe a little bit back off. That's kind of, you know, that's the one thing about weathering, guys. You gotta not be afraid to kind of wipe some back off if you feel like you went a little bit too far. And here's where we're going to do one of my more favorite techniques I've kind of found here over last year. So as you saw, I kind of took that black paint and kind of rubbed it on my fuel tank. Well, that's because that fuel tank has a lot of that rail brown on it. Now I'm taking a Q-tip and I'm wiping it up and down. And basically what I'm going for here is I'm trying to get kind of like a look like the fuel tank was like been brushing up against something. And the best way I've found to do that is to just kind of take some black paint and go in there and just kind of work it up and down with the Q-tip so it kind of rubs off and in, and it kind of makes a wavy, uneven look to it. And that's kind of the best way I've found to really simulate that. And as you can see, you just kind of keep playing with your black paint and just kind of keep working the edges a little bit. It'll slowly kind of give you what you want there. It's just a lot of flipping a little paint on and then wiping a little paint off and putting a little bit on and wiping a little bit off. But if you keep messing with it, eventually it'll really come alive, and it's just a matter of continuously messing with it. There, you guys kind of see that? And since we did it on one side, now we have to go over here to our other side and do the same exact thing, because that's the other thing about doing weathering, at least in my opinion, is if you kind of weather things up, you kind of want it to match to a sense. You kind of want to have them be somewhat similar so that it makes sense symmetrically. That probably didn't just make any sense, but that way it at least matches, and it's not like one side's all beat up and the other side's got nothing going on to it. It also makes it so that you could run it as, a lead unit, a trailing unit, whatever, and it'll, give you two different looks depending on what way the locomotive is facing. So that's always kind of a neat little thing about doing that. So I always kind of do it that way. But now we've clear coated our locomotive. I use Krylon Crystal Clear flat clear coat. It's an acrylic base lacquer. That's what I used for all my weathering stuff. As you can see now, I'm peeling all my tape off my windows here because we're starting our final assembly here. Got this sped up pretty good here because I don't think you guys need to be too bored to death with me peeling tape off of windows. That was just Scotch painter's tape is all I used to cover my windows. Now I have my number board decals from Shell Scale. Shout out to them. They make great number board decals. But we got to go ahead and we got to start off by just putting our actual number board, the white background, onto our number board housing there. And you guys kind of see. And these generally aren't too bad. You can generally fit them into place pretty easily. And we got to do the same thing here on the rear. This is always kind of the first thing I do after I finish peeling off my painter's tape, just because it'll give these time to dry before I go ahead and actually put the numbers on, which, spoiler alert, guys, I forgot to film that apparently, so we won't get to see that today, but they'll kind of give me time to do other stuff while these are drying before I do my number board numbers, which will be one of the last steps here. Now, we also need to install our lenses and our ditch lights here. And I'm using the actual lenses from Details West, and I'm using some canopy glue to hold those lenses in place. So you just take and put a little canopy glue into the housing, and then cut the housing off the little, or cut the lens off the little holder deal it comes with from Details West, and put it in place. It's literally that simple. And the nice thing about these Details West ones is they actually come with 4 lenses for each pair of ditch lights, which is nice because you only have 2 ditch lights. So I use the other 2 lenses for my headlights in this case because, I mean, why not? You already got them there, you might as well use them. So as you can see, we're using those for headlights. Up there, up the top. And there it is. Oh, fell back off. Come on, gotta get that up on there. And there it is. Right there in place. Oh, nope, it came off again. I gotta put a little more canopy glue on there, I guess. And there it goes. Alright, so now for our rear headlight, we don't have any more number board, or we don't have any more of those Details West lenses, so we're going to make our own using some fiber optic cord and a lighter. As you guys can see, I got that zoom in there. So this fiber optic cord stuff, I got this on eBay a few years ago. I had a bunch of it. And basically you just take your lighter, you hold it up at the end of it. It'll basically like bead up the end of it, and it basically makes a little lens. You cut it off with a knife and boom, you got a lens. So I've been using this stuff for a few years. I've probably got enough to last me for another 30 years. because I think I want to say I bought like 10 feet of it or something, and it was only like $5. I can't quite recall what size it is. It's a pretty small size of it, but that's what I use for my light lenses, and I think they work out pretty good. The hardest part can be getting them to be matched sizes, because you're basically, you know, eyeballing it with a light or holding the stuff up there. But the beauty of it is the stuff's so cheap, who cares? If I have to make 4 of them to get 2 that are good, who cares? So go ahead and get those installed in there with a little campy glue and put into place. And we'll have some rear light action there. So now we got some rear lights. So next up, we'll have to go ahead and do our rear view mirrors and get our, our wind deflector we got to put up on there, which are still in the bag from Atlas because I haven't taken them out yet. But we'll go ahead and get those installed, and we'll get our air hose installed, and then we'll be ready to go over and run this unit on the layout finally. So for these wind deflectors, they should just pop into place, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I couldn't get them to pop in there because of the clear coat might have filled up the holes for them, so I had to re-drill the holes here. You guys will see here in just a minute. Or did these not come with holes? Maybe these didn't actually have holes from the factory at the Atlas, and I had to drill them. Interesting. But either way, guys, this is kind of coming up on the end of the video here. Shout out to anybody that just stuck through this like hour and 40-something minute video here. I did not mean for it to be this long, but that's what happens when you start editing and editing and editing, and before you know it, it's an hour and 40-minute long video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. It's been taking me a little while to get through and answer comments, but I do try to answer everybody. Just sometimes it might take me a week or two. Just kind of depends what I got going on and how detailed of an answer I need to give. You know, the more complicated questions and the things I might need to answer a little bit longer, I got to get on my computer to answer them as opposed to trying to type it out on my phone. So, as always, guys, I want to thank all of you for watching, and I hope any of you at home that want to build one of these goes out and buys one and, you know, throws this video on and does it. It's really not that hard. It's just a matter of, you know, taking the time and sitting down and doing it. So, as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.